Hey, Tyler,
Yeah, Sam?
do you think boys and girls can be warriors?
Well, yeah, I don't see why not.
Well, see, here's where you're wrong. Boys and girls are good at separate things. Boys are strong and good at fighting and stuff. Girls are good at cooking and sewing and stuff. So, no, I don't think girls can be warriors.
Sam, it sounds like you're being a bit sexist right now.
Well, I think I'm just speaking the cold, hard facts because I'm Sam Albus.
And I'm Tyler Strandberg.
And you're listening to the Avatar Podcast.
Yip Yip.
On this podcast, we watch the Nickelodeon show Avatar: The Last Airbender, episode by episode, and discuss it in detail.
We talk about plot, themes, and character development throughout the show, as well as anything else that we may notice that's also relevant to what's going on in the Avatar world or what's going on in our world.
At the end of each episode, we'll talk about who our favorite character was, as well as give the episode a rating on a scale of 1 to 10.
You're listening to the Avatar Podcast.
Yip Yip!
Sam, we are on our 4th episode.
Oh my gosh, time flies when you're having so much fun making a podcast.
It really does. It really
And
do.
today we are going to be looking at the 4th episode of Book 1, and it is titled The Warriors of Kyoshi.
Ooh, I wonder what this episode is going to be about.
Maybe
Who?
some warriors from Kyoshi.
What is Kyoshi? What's a warrior?
We don't know.
Should I look up right now on my computer a synopsis?
Yeah,
and then
why
read
don't
it?
you do a quick Google
Oh,
search
look,
of
I
the
already pulled it up.
synopsis?
Here
oh
it
my
is.
god, you had it ready.
Yep, I'm going to read it now. Aang brings Katara and Sokka to Kyoshi Island to ride the giant koi fish, but after a close encounter with the Unagi, the team is captured by a group of female warriors. Aang reveals he is an incarnation of Kyoshi's island's founder, Avatar Kyoshi, so that the villagers... this is hard. So the villagers celebrate the arrival of the Avatar. Word of the Avatar's arrival eventually reaches Zuko, who sails to Kyoshi Island immediately. Sokka befriends the warrior leader, Suki, who manages to change his sexist attitude. She teaches Sokka the warrior skills of Kyoshi and develops a crush on him in the process. However, Zuko attacks the village and nearly burns it down in pursuit of Aang. Team Avatar is forced to leave the village. As they depart, the young Avatar throws himself into the water and comes up riding a Unagi, which, under his direction, sprays water from its mouth and onto the village, saving it from total ruin.
This episode premiered on Nickelodeon on March 4th, 2005, and was written by Nick Malice.
Sam, reading is really hard. I
is
messed up a
pretty hard.
lot of things in that intro.
Maybe I might have recalled you giving me shit for not reading
Okay,
the
you know what?
last
We're
one
gonna
well.
move on. Some things about this intro I noticed. Why do they have to clarify that it's female warriors?
Because they are.
I hated that.
They are female warriors.
I hated that. And they also said she develops a crush on Sokka throughout the process.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Ooh, I'm excited for
okay,
this.
we have things to say about that later.
So
I'm
let's
sure.
move on right away.
Yes.
There's a few like world building themes that I want to touch on. I wouldn't say world building isn't necessarily a theme of this episode, but there's a few that I would just want to touch on right now.
Mm-hmm.
In the very first scene, we see that Zuko is like breathing and like he's controlling the candles like around him. And I think that's really cool because Iroh has been talking about for the past few episodes that firebending comes from the breath. And here we see Zuko literally controlling the fire around him with his breath. Small thing, super cool. This part really gets me, and I want to touch on this. So, the different nations in Avatar are based off different nations in the real world. The Earth Kingdom is based off China. The Fire Nation is based off Japan. The Air Nomads are based off like the Tibetan monks. And the Water Tribe is based off of the Inuit people. This bothers me so much because Kyoshi Island, first of all, Kyoshi is a Japanese name. We both know that. We have both done some light studying in Japanese, and Kyoshi is distinctly Japanese. The Unagi is literally a Japanese eel. Like, Japanese eel is literally called Unagi. The Earth Kingdom, this is an Earth Kingdom town. The Earth Kingdom is based off China, but they have these two very distinct, like, Japanese influences. And that bothers me. It's just, it's such a small thing, but it bothers me.
It's an inconsistency for sure in the lore. And like another small detail that I'm sure bothers you as well. And yeah, all of the people in Kyoshi village wear blue instead of green.
Yes.
Which is like, I thought it was established we were in the Earth Kingdom.
Seasons.
Yeah.
Like, Everyone wears their color.
Everybody's, nicely color-coded, and you can tell exactly what nation they're from by what they're wearing.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's, like, necessarily, like, the nations have to be color-coded, but, different cultures have different styles.
Well, it just makes it easier as easy as a viewer.
My theory is that they're closer to the Southern Water Tribe than they are to the Earth Kingdom, so they just traded with them.
That's fair, too.
Some other quick things. Kyoshi is the first woman avatar we see, so we know that the avatar isn't just a male. It can be female. We finally see foaming at the mouth guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, you skipped this point. This is more important than that one. We see foaming at the mouth guy.
This becomes a bit, and I love it.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just dumb. It's stupid, dumb. And it's still funny. It's just funny. It's probably the funniest thing about this episode, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
Last point, and this is something, it's a question that's asked. It's like a fan theory that's debated a lot on a few like fan group pages on social medias. It's that I don't want to call any specific ones out, but like...
I know what you're talking about. That's all that matters.
It bothers me when people ask like questions that can be answered by just watching the show. Yes, benders can bend things that they can't see. Like, we see it right now. Katara bends the water out of Aang.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Saves his life for,
yes.
We're going to move many on. Times that is.
And that's not the only time we see benders bending things that they can't see either. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the themes of this episode. Sam, I'm curious. I had a really hard time trying to figure out what the theme was.
Yeah, it's like not obvious in this episode at all, and it wasn't obvious from our cold open.
I didn't get it.
The theme for this episode is sexism. It like pervades throughout. Yeah, right? Did you watch the episode?
Yeah, we watched it together.
Yeah, sexism is like the main theme, but so this episode was difficult. Like, there's a lot of themes that are like interwoven throughout this episode, which is one thing I really like about it. But yeah, that's kind of the main thing, and we see it like right at the beginning. When they're writing on Appa, they introduce the theme like right off of the bat. At the top of the episode, like literally right at the beginning, Katara is fixing Sokka's pants. He has like a hole in his pants or whatever. And, Sokka's just like, girls are better at sewing and guys are better at hunting and such. That very matter-of-fact distinction. Like, there is no room for error.
It's like, he literally says that very matter-of-factly. He's like, simple, girls are better at this and guys are better at this.
That's just how the world works. I'm 15 years old and I've never left my tiny-ass village in the Water Tribe.
Katara is like, she like is sewing his pants because they have a rip in them. And like, she's not done with them, so they still have a hole, and she's like, all done with your pants, look at what a great job I did, and like sticks her hand through the hole.
He's like, no, I need my pants.
And also, I will attest that it's not always true that women are better at sewing and men are better at hunting. It might be because I'm gay, but I was a theater costuming major in college, so it was quite literally my job to
smash those gender roles.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the stereotype, right? Like, Sokka is like laying down the prevailing stereotype in many, like every part of the world, that, there are certain things that are womanly things and there's certain things that are men things. And I think that's super important to introduce to a young audience.
Yes. Especially important to teach them that that's not how it has to be, which let's move on a little bit. The scene continues and Sokka continues to be a sexist dick. The Kyoshi warriors capture them. And, well, here's just a good quote that we can take a listen to from the episode.
Who are you? Where are the men who ambushed us?
There were no men. We ambushed you. Now tell us, who are you and what are you doing here?
Wait a second, there's no way a bunch of girls took us down.
A bunch of girls, huh?
So I think this is interesting because Sokka thinks that there's, like, no way that some girls could have, like, captured them. You know what I mean? It just really shows these sexist ideals that he has, and that, like, even though he's a man and he's had, like, literally no warrior practice, we saw Zuko beat the shit out of him, like, in the second episode. Like, he still thinks that because he's a guy, like, there's no way a girl would be able to take him down. the fact that he still thinks like he has to be better than girls, even though he's never had any experience, kind of gets flipped on its head a little bit later, because we see him, he goes in and, as we said in the synopsis, like Suki starts to train him to be a warrior. And I think this is an important moment for the sexism theme because it teaches you that there will be people who are better than you at some things and there are people who are worse than you at some things. In this case, the warriors are much better than him, you know? And it doesn't matter that they're women. We're not saying that women are better warriors. We're saying that these women have practiced more than he has and therefore they're better than him.
Yeah, it's important that the Kyoshi warriors are women because it is proving that point that gender doesn't really have to be a factor in that sort of thing. Like they are people that trained to become warriors. And they are also women.
Yes.
So it's like that's what it's trying to drive home.
I wrote this down at work, which like, wow, Tyler, good job coming up with this quote at my office job. I wrote, women don't have to fit into one category, much like men don't have to. Men can be masculine and warriors. Women can be feminine and warriors. So we're going to zip to the end of the episode when we have another quote for this one to cover this theme.
I treated you like a girl when I should have treated you like a warrior.
I am a warrior. But I'm a girl, too.
So this part bothers me for different reasons, but I'm not sure I want to dive into that right now. I just think it's important how Suki really drives home the point that just because she's a warrior doesn't mean that she can't have feelings for Sokka. And doesn't mean that she can't still be a girl, you know? Like that's a really cool point. That's a really cool point to show that like you can be a tough badass and also like a little lovey-dovey person.
I'm not sure why you went to that voice, but I think it just proves to a very important and very impressionable young audience that these things are not mutually exclusive. Like it's not an and/or situation. You can be female, you can be feminine, and a warrior. Yeah, I think that's awesome. That's one of the probably the thing I like the most about this episode is this theme that they drive home, a very important one, especially for a kids show. And I'm super, super happy that they include it.
Sam, we're already on this scene. I have problems with this scene. Do you?
Yes, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay, let's talk about it. I hate this scene. It's so like important to show that.
Hold on,
like,
let's share our thoughts. Like, I'll go first. I hate this.
I mean, like, it's really important. Like, that one line that Suki has, like, that's really important. You know, like, you can be a warrior and you can be a girl. Cool, yeah. But, like, the way the scene starts off, first of all, they're hiding behind a building.
There's no time to say goodbye.
There's no time to say goodbye as you are literally hiding to say goodbye to each other. Like, God, it's so fucking dumb. And then it's like, I hate how she kisses him on the cheek to show that, like, she can be a girl, too. Because, like, in my opinion, we do not see any hint at a romantic relationship between those two throughout the entire episode. It literally, to me, just seems like they were, like, she was training him, and they had, like, a fun time. They had, like, a little bit of an awkward moment where he embarrassed her, and she's blushing. But, like, that, to me, did not scream at all romantic.
Yeah, I think it falls into the really... just very heteronormative like trope in shows in general where if you have a male and a female character on screen
they have to
be in a love interest. And I think that's really where this episode in particular falls short is it plays too much into stereotypes and tropes while also painting a really good message. Like overall the message of the episode is great, but there are like a few places in this episode where it really, really falls short, and that is one of them. It's just like they're getting there. They're on the stairs up to making this point and, you know, making a really, really important statement, but then they kind of tumble back a little bit.
It's like they make good progress, but then there's just a few points where it's like Ooh. Okay, so that's just all I wanted to talk about the scene. Let's move on to the next theme, which kind of starts to tie in about in the middle of like where sexism is like changing as a theme.
Yes.
And this one is humility. We're already talking about Sokka, and this theme of humility ties into the other storyline with Katara and Aang. But since we're already on Sokka, let's just stay on him. Halfway through, when he goes to the warriors and he's still being like sexist, he calls their warrior practice a dance lesson.
Yikes, Sokka.
Yeah, come on, bro. Like, oh my God.
I mean, it's in character for him at the beginning of this episode, but yeah, it's just like, oh my God, why do you have to drive? Why do you feel so like motivated to drive home these points? Like, why?
Anyway, he gets embarrassed and he has to learn that he has to swallow his pride in order to become a better warrior. And here's like a really good quote from the episode. I think that shows that pretty well.
I would be honored if you would teach me.
Even if I'm a girl?
I'm sorry if I insulted you earlier. I was wrong.
We normally don't teach outsiders, let alone boys.
Please make an exception. I won't let you down.
All right. But you have...
So I really like that because it really shows that it's important to own up to your mistakes and admit when you're wrong. And by doing so, you will become a better person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh God, that's such a good theme, you know? And the fact that like this kids show is teaching kids to do that, to admit when you make mistakes, and that like you can grow from those.
I think there's two very important things to note about this particular scene. The first thing is that we talk about pride here. It's very important to note that his pride is very much woven into his masculinity and his view of his masculinity. And this, this episode does a great job of, kind of breaking the traditional gender roles and things like that.
Well, speaking of breaking the traditional gender roles, this next point that I have written down really ties into that. Sokka's trying on the warrior's uniform, which in this case is like a dress kind of outfit. And he's really embarrassed, but Suki is teaching him that there is nothing inherently wrong with femininity. And there's nothing wrong with a man embracing femininity. And in fact, femininity can be strong too, She's teaching him what all of these different things on the warrior's uniform mean and how they symbolize strength and power. And it's so cool. It's so well done.
And then Aang comes in and says, "Hey, Sokka, nice dress."
Oh my God.
Exactly what we were saying before. This show is like, oh my God, this is saying such good things about femininity and masculinity and gender roles and like getting into like gender neutral and like gender fluid and like non-binary sort of themes in here. Like, this is amazing. This is a kid's show. And then they ruin it, quite literally ruin it, because like the first time when we watched it for the first time, it was just like, Aang's not being like that, right? But then the second time, we're like, oh, it literally is.
It's like a yikes.
It's
a yikes
literally
moment.
a sexist joke.
Yeah.
And
like, it would be different if Aang was saying like, oh, hey, Sokka, wow, nice dress. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So because Aang just stepped in here, I think this is a good transition to be talking about Aang's part of this theme now, this humility theme. First of all, I'm just going to be upfront. Let's talk about how we feel about this. I'll start. I hate it. God, Aang and Katara's half of this episode is not good. It's a little bit annoying. It teeters on annoying. It does have this theme of humility in that Aang has to learn that there's more to being the Avatar other than there's just like love and attention, like the villagers are constantly just like obsessing over him because like, whoa, the Avatar is back. And he has to learn that there's more to that,
Yeah, exactly. He's just like parading around like, I'm the Avatar. I'm so cool. Look what I can do with the marbles. Yeah. Look, I can airbend. Look, Appa, like this. And he's just, he's not taking things that seriously.
No,
I mean, that's not a part of his character, but like he should be, I don't know. Like he just doesn't. He's parading
it's not that
around
he's not
like
taking things seriously. It's that he is like soaking in the attention when he doesn't need to be, you know? This is kind of a good example. Sokka got a really big reality check from Suki, you know? And I think in this episode, Katara gives Aang the reality check when he's sitting in the water and everyone that he was there like watching him kind of just abandoned him, you know? And Katara comes up and she shows that like she's still there for him. And after Aang has been like super mean and the worst to Katara like all episode, she still like shows up. So that to him is kind of like his reality check. That's really all I have on this theme. Yeah, these were pretty important themes, I guess. Really hard to kind of dissect and split apart, and they're pretty ingrained with the characters. Do you want to move on and talk about them?
Yeah, I think we should, but I think we're going to get to that after the break.
All right, and we are back. So let's dive into some characters.
Yeah, characters.
Sokka's pretty ingrained in the sexism theme. Should we talk about him first?
Yes, let's talk about Sokka.
So I just want to point out that Sokka has never really had any interactions outside of his village. I'm pretty sure this is the first time in his life he's left to the South Pole. And he's the leader there.
He doesn't know anything other than what he grew up doing and like his image of, you know, what a warrior and what a leader is. Their dad left to fight the war and left them to look after their village.
Yeah.
And Sokka is just like, well, I only know of what I've seen in passing from my dad and the other warriors, so I'm just going to play that up. He never had his dad there to lead him, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's hard, too, as a kid to know the difference between, like, a leader and someone who's kind of just, like, controlling. And because he was a kid, it's hard for him to distinct, like, my dad is doing this because he's leading. And instead, he just plays that up to a point where, like, it's unhealthy. And we get into, like, the toxic masculinity, like, spectrum.
But they're not there to show that they can have the feminine qualities or whatever, too.
Yes. So I'm sure that Sokka didn't learn these things because of the environment that he grew up in, which does not excuse it. But
we can understand it.
Yes.
Why he acts that way.
Yes. Sam, you wrote down this next point. Why don't you cover that?
Yeah. So, like, Sokka, I mean, we see this in just how he acts at the top of this episode. He has just a huge sense of ego and pride. He is the warrior of his village. He literally says that, too, to Kyoshi. Just like, I was the best warrior in my village. And it's just like, you were also the only warrior in your village for, like,
in a way,
2 years.
He's right.
He is right, but also really wrong. Like, you can't... I mean, if you're the only one, you can be the best, I guess. But, like, he never learned really what it means to be a warrior.
Which I think is really funny because, like, right after that, Suki, like, kind of flips it on him and it's like, oh, well, if you were the best, why don't you show us a few moves?
Immediately calls him out on it.
Yeah, and that's really funny because, like, he gets really embarrassed about it because, like, he knows that he can't. Like, I think deep down he knows that these girls are better than him, you know, but he doesn't want to admit that, which, like you said, like, contributes to his ego, right? He can't admit it because his ego is so high and mighty.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he wasn't expecting to get called out at all, which kind of surprises me because Katara calls him out on stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I guess he just expected it would be different.
Yeah, I think though he doesn't take that as seriously because Katara's his sister, you know? So
yeah,
he doesn't
I guess.
take it as like her calling him out. He just kind of takes it as like her being annoying, you know?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think you're right about that.
I don't know.
Actually.
That's just a theory. We talked about this a little bit. Like, he was very quick to correct himself. And
yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about
Yeah.
before. Like, I think it's super, super important that he literally says the words, I was wrong. And because that is a very important part about growing as a human, is admitting when you're wrong or when you made a mistake. And then from there, you can grow and learn from it. And we see him actually do this throughout the rest of the episode. You know, learn from the Kyoshi warriors about what it means to be a warrior, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be masculine or feminine, and where those lines are, and where the lines matter and where they don't matter.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which I think is interesting, too, because, like, we brought up a little bit how he had to admit he was wrong to become a better person. And this is really cool because we see here as Suki is training him, he picks up these moves that she's teaching him really quickly. So he's actually, like, a good fighter. He actually is a good warrior. But, like, he had to set aside, like, his ego and, like, his sexist attitudes and accept the help from someone who he had deemed was worse than him before he even knew. And as soon as he accepted, like, I was wrong, this person is better than me, and I can learn from them, he learned really quickly, and he got a lot better at what he did.
Yeah, when you swallow your pride and set it aside, that's when you do your learning.
Yes.
Sokka's learning from his mistake, and he's genuinely sorry, and he's having a positive experience from putting that all aside and learning from Suki. Really good stuff.
Yeah, and I think that we talked about how there's a lot of parts in this episode that kind of fail. I think that there's this one part where that it does really, really well when Sokka's getting trained by Kyoshi and the village chief or something like comes by and says, like,
I have no idea what he is.
I don't either. But he says there's firebenders, and then he says, like, girls, come quickly. And Sokka says, hey, I'm not a... Oh, whatever. And I think that's really cool because I think that is Sokka putting his ego aside. So I think this was a small thing that they did very right. Yeah, Sokka had a lot going on this episode.
Yes,
let's
a lot
touch on Aang pretty briefly.
Yeah, let's do Aang. We see right at the top of the episode that it's pretty obvious that Aang is really good with animals because we just got introduced to Momo in the last episode, and he's already trained Momo to get his
already
marble.
Has this animal trained. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, obviously he's really, really good with animals, so that was kind of funny to see. He was just like, Momo, marbles. And I think it might have been faster if you just grabbed them yourself, but whatever.
No, but like, oh god, it's just so funny.
It is. It's definitely funny. Throughout this entire episode, like, we have the Sokka, Suki, the whole, like, sexism and gender role side of this episode, and then we have the Katara Aang side of the episode. And this, focusing on Aang specifically, is really where Aang is learning about the good sides and good parts of being Avatar and the bad. He's really, he's learning that his actions have consequences in good ways, and they have consequences in bad ways as well. He is adored by the people in the village. So that is the good part about being Avatar. But also with the bad, when the Fire Nation comes, when Zuko comes and attacks the village, it's just like, oh, my actions and just me existing, there's a bad part to that too.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's really, really good things about being Avatar. There are really, really bad things.
It's finding a balance.
It is finding a balance. Haha, the Avatar restores balance, but he needs to find balance within himself.
Oh my god, I'm so glad that we just did that.
That was not in the script.
That was not. It was not planned. And I know that you definitely want to cover this last point because you feel very strongly about it, and I do not. I think it's fine. I think it's a good end to the episode, but you have very strong opinions on it.
Oh, yeah. I do want to talk about this because this is, quite frankly, bullshit, okay? It's bull. Hey, let's talk about this. Hey, I hate this. I really hate this. He's just like, I have an idea. That was my phone on the ground because I'm so angry. I'm not really that angry, but this is like, oh my god, he jumps off of Appa and gets on the Unagi's head, this like eel thing. And
like
he's just like,
giant
what
eel.
will happen if I pull on the like whisker things? Oh, water comes out because that makes a lot of sense. And then Aang suddenly knows how to wrangle a giant freaking animal, and the animal doesn't just shake him off or whatever.
He's good with animals.
Oh my god, it doesn't matter. It's a giant Unagi. If the Unagi wanted to knock him off,
it tries to shake him off.
Unagi would.
It tries to shake him off, but he has the whiskey.
There's no way he would hold on. There's actually no way.
You know what? I buy it.
I don't. It's bullshit, and I hate it. I don't buy it at all. It's so improbable.
I think it's a little bit like frou-frou-y, but like I accept it.
I get it. It's a kids show. It's a fantasy show, but I don't know why in that moment I couldn't suspend my disbelief.
I mean, I think it's the same thing.
Right.
I think
right.
It's the same thing as like the way I feel about the Suki and Sokka scene, where I just hate it. It's the same thing, just a different scene.
I guess it's just a personal thing. I just don't think it's likely at all. There's just like, I think this is a good idea to jump on this Unagi's head when I don't know what to do.
Well, he did ride the elephant koi, so he has some idea of animals.
Yeah, sure. I bet he definitely had an idea, like, if I pull on these whiskers, the water will surely come out.
He saw that, like, after he was running away from the Unagi, he saw it, like, trying to, like, spit water at him.
Yeah, but how do you know the whiskers were
Okay,
going to put the
we're going to
water
move
out?
on right now.
God.
We're going to talk about Katara. She's the last character, and we only have one thing about her. We see that she's getting more control over her water bending. She was able to bend the water out of Aang. She's practicing with, like, a bowl of water on the floor. And we see, as I mentioned in the first episode, the water was more so controlling how she moved rather than herself controlling how the water moved. It's just very, very small character developments. And Sam, I think we learned a lot about characters.
Yes, we did. We learned a lot about these characters, but not really a lot about other important characters in the show.
I mean, that's just how it be. Do you think this will have an impact on who your favorite character was?
Yes, it does have an impact, but I think I'm going to tell you more about that after we take this break.
Sam, you said it would have an impact on who your favorite character was. And I gotta tell you, it definitely had an impact on who my favorite character was.
Mm-hmm. Well, who was your favorite character of this episode?
I feel a little weird about this. But my favorite character was Sokka. I liked seeing the development that he went through, even though I feel weird about it because, like, it's kind of hard to say he was my favorite character when he was such, like, a dick in the first half of the episode.
I'm really confused. I'm very confused.
Why?
Just keep going.
Okay, so I feel bad about it because, like, I feel weird saying that he was my favorite character when he was, like, very mean and rude and sexist in the beginning of the episode. But he was my favorite because I liked seeing him grow. I liked seeing him change. I liked seeing the development that he went through, admitting he was wrong, especially, and then growing from that. It really spoke to me. And like I said, I hated Katara and Aang's story. So I liked Sokka. Who was your favorite character, Sam?
My favorite character was Suki.
Good choice. Good choice.
We didn't talk enough positively about Suki.
No.
Like, there just wasn't enough there to talk about her, like, in depth. But, like, she's so strong and cool, and, like, she has funny lines in this episode. Mm-hmm. I like Sokka's arc, and it's a very important episode for Sokka. But I just didn't like him the best. And I didn't like Aang. I didn't like Katara this episode. They were both a little bit annoying.
Yep.
So Suki's the next best option, so I'm going with Suki.
Suki by default.
Yes, Suki by default, even though Suki's awesome. Like, everybody likes Suki.
Yes.
Who doesn't like Suki? But, like, oh my god, why does she have to be Sokka love interest? Why couldn't she have just left and not kissed him?
Hey,
anyway,
that's
it's not her fault.
No.
It's not your fault, Suki. It's the writer's fault. All right. We talked about favorite characters. Let's give this episode a rating. Do you want to explain how we rate these episodes?
I'll explain it.
Okay.
We're on our 4th episode. We could still be getting some new listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So we give it pretty standard 1 to 10. But we don't do it like an American grading system where 70% is a C. We would do it where 50% is a C. 50% is average. A 5 is kind of just middle of the road. It's not great. It's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. 1 is so terrible I hated it, and I hated every second of it. And 10 is this episode is perfection. Something about it just makes it top tier, God tier.
And everyone should see it.
Yes.
All right, that being said, very good explanation, by the way.
Thank you.
What is your rating, your verdict for this episode?
Sam, I've given the last 3 episodes a 10.
We've given the last 3 episodes a 10.
Yes. Sam, I gave this episode a 6. I liked this episode enough the first half, the first time we watched it. The first time we watched it, I was like, that was good, I wasn't super impressed. I used for reference like a 6 is like I thought it was enjoyable, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to someone. So if I was recommending Avatar, this is not an episode that I would recommend they watch. And the second time we watched it, I was kind of just like sitting through it. So that's really what gives it the 6 rating. Like it's just good enough. It's a good episode. It's not like average. I didn't feel like I was just kind of like sitting there taking it in both times.
Yeah.
It was just a little yeah. Sam, what's your rating?
Wow, we are just on the same wavelength. I'm giving it a 6 too.
Oh no.
But hey, it's a 6 episode. Like it literally is. We need to address this. Like this episode is important in the way that it introduces very important themes and has a very good message to it. And that's why it gets an above average. For me, that's what I was actually flipping between a 6 and a 7 too, but ultimately just like I can't stop thinking about the shortcomings of this episode. Like they introduce really important scenes and that's what makes it good and an enjoyable episode because it's fun to see Sokka explore that and and learn from his mistakes and stuff. But there's just enough there holding it back that, and not to mention like the whole arc with Aang and Katara that is literally half of this episode is not good.
It's so dumb
because it's really dumb and doesn't show like anything about their character whatsoever.
No, we don't learn anything new about them.
So it's like the part with Sokka and Suki is important, but there's enough shortcomings there that brings it down to a 6 for me. Like it's a 6.
All right, I'll take that. We've agreed on the past 4 episodes now.
Yeah, well, that's just because we're on the same wavelength.
I have a strong feeling, though, that the next episode we will not give the same rating. I'm going to predict the future on this.
Okay, we'll see if that comes through, because unlike you, I don't have the episodes memorized, so I literally don't know what we're watching next. That's all we have for this episode. A huge thank you goes out to our producer and audio engineer, Aaron Bogen, along with his production company, Sonovent Productions, and Annie Galloway, who made our cover art and is our graphic designer.
Make sure you join us next week. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It's super helpful to us. Don't forget to tell a friend about the show and share the show if you like it.
If you want to get more involved with our Avatar content, please feel free to reach out to us. Send us questions about the show, fan theories that you may have, what you thought of the episode, something we mentioned that you liked, or something we didn't mention that you wish we would have talked about. Our email is airbenderpod@gmail.com, or you can tweet us or follow us on Instagram, both at airbenderpod. That is AIR Bender POD.
If you want to keep in touch and stay updated with the Avatar fandom, make sure you join our Facebook community page at the Avatar Podcast Yip Yip Community, where you can discuss the show with other fans and ourselves.
I'm Sam Albus, the co-host and co-writer of this show. You can follow me on Twitter at Sam_Albus or on Instagram at SamAlbus. My last name is spelled ALBUS.
I'm Tyler Strandberg, the host, creator, and co-writer of this show. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram, both at TylerJohn7. That's TYLERJON and the number 7.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
The next week for the next episode that you don't know.
Yeah, that I